Welcome to Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age, the show designed to help make middle age your prime time of life by defying the notion that once you reach 40, 50, or even 60 years old, your crowning achievements are all behind you. Regardless of whether you're just approaching 40 or firmly entrenched in your middle years, it's time to launch your very own personal journey toward a joyful and purpose-filled second half of life. Each week, host Roy Richards, an expert on midlife renewal and author of A Midlife Challenge, Wake Up, will discuss the challenges common to middle age and help guide you to a brighter...
Well, my next guest, therapist Roxanne Derhodge, is here to suggest, as responsible parents, how we can guide our almost adult offspring to have fun while they remain safe on prom night. And Roxanne Derhodge is a trusted psychotherapist, advisor, and founder of Roxanne Derhodge Consulting. She works extensively with individuals, couples, families, adults, and children, and organizations to improve self-understanding, relationships, and communication skills at work. And she's author of the new book, A Therapist Insider's Guide on Relationships, Healing the Past. And hello, Roxanne, and welcome to Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age.
Well, thanks a lot for having me.
Well, as our teenage sons and daughters eagerly prepare for prom night, how should we counsel them so that our advice doesn't go in one ear and out the other? Should we speak openly with them about drinking, safety, and sex?
Well, absolutely. And I think as parents, what we have to do is ensure that they're not looking at us coming at them from an authoritarian perspective.
Oh, yes.
But more to bring it up when you're having, casual time with them.
Yeah.
As an open two-way conversation where you're telling them some of the things that might possibly be out there.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes at this particular stage they become defensive because they oftentimes don't believe that we understand.
Yeah, we never do.
What does mom or dad know? They can't relate to what's out there and what might be of concern. So I think a platform that I often say for parents is to, talk to them generally about things often and not when you have a real concern for their safety. So I think bringing up things about, drinking, which obviously there's a lot of pressure to have a lot of drinks, not even a drink, but sometimes, unfortunate that they may have more. And if they've never really drank before, that's a real concern, especially on a night like prom night where there's a lot of people drinking maybe a lot more than they need to that night.
Yes, that's for sure. I suppose storytelling would be a good idea, like if you had personal experience or knew somebody that lost a teenage son or daughter through an accident or, some teenager got in trouble, if you don't relate it directly to your own son or daughter, but you tell about somebody else, does that work sometimes?
I think so, because, oftentimes when it comes from, our own experience, their back goes up immediately because this is mom or dad trying to tell them what to do. So I think if you come from the space of caution in that, I think, starting off with saying to them, look, we've all been there. We've all been to our proms. It was a great night. It was a great build-up. We all wanted to go out and have fun, with our dates and our friends.
Yeah.
However, the caveat might be a story that you know of, or I think something closer to home sometimes oftentimes makes them think, wow, maybe it is something I should consider, and that you're not trying to put fear into them.
Yeah.
The open two-way conversation, I think, is often what we find best, especially with teenagers, where you're saying to them, this is what I'm thinking, but kind of what are you thinking? Is there something that I'm not understanding? Because that collaborative element of open communication, I think, is oftentimes where I get the most information from my teenager.
Yeah, if there's only some way that you can convince your son or daughter that having fun on their own terms and overcoming peer pressure is the absolute best prom memory you can give yourself. If you, set some objectives of what you're not going to do in advance and stick by those objectives, I would think that would build a happier memory than giving in and doing something that obviously you're sorry for later.
Absolutely, because, this is, it's supposed to be a fun night. They've worked hard. They're starting into a whole new stage of their life. And they're going off maybe to, college, university relatively soon, where then they're not tethered by, being close to home.
Yeah.
So I think, what I often say is allowing them to think, out loud without feeling that there would be any repercussions for what they're sharing with you, I think becomes very, very important. And sometimes you might have to, bite your lip a bit and peel back. But I think oftentimes when you're able to create that space where they see the openness and the willingness of you to listen and not react in a way that would shut them down, I think that allows them, that open voice, which is what you really need to stay connected to with your teens.
Yeah. Here's a kind of an out and left field question, but should you attempt to contact parents of your teen's prom date or of other kids that you know that they're going to associate with, they'll be hanging out with, and if you do contact the other parent, what do you suggest you say to break the ice? I don't know if that's a good idea.
That would be a tough one. It would be a tough one if you had to do it. I would say, you'd really have to think through that phone call because you're impacting kind of your relationship with your teen.
Yeah.
So I think it would be more casual if you were to run into them, that you'd talk about, you're hoping that they're all going to have fun and that you kind of know, who's going to be the driver, those types of things.
Yeah.
But I think you'd be cautious, definitely, as you have those conversations, because what you don't want your teenager to believe is that somehow you're trying to steer the night and take away their control over what their prom should be like.
Last thing. I know the parents often sponsor pre-prom parties, but after the prom's over, I don't know if it's realistic to have like a post-prom activity that the parents get involved in or not. Do you find that works, or is that?
Well, I haven't heard of many. Maybe you have. Oftentimes what I find is that there are huge parties after the fact where, there's a lot of things going on, obvious overuse of alcohol, that, they rent, bunches of hotel rooms, those types of things.
Yeah.
So again, I going back to some basics around safety that you should discuss around, not putting down your drink, checking your drink if it's left and you walk away. Who are you with? And, let's talk a bit about a backup plan should you're, feeling unsafe in any way.
Yeah.
Can you text? Who can you text? Who are you around?
Oh, yeah.
And knowing that they can call home at any point or connect with someone that's an adult should they need to come home.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with talking to your teen about that, I wouldn't think, because it's always nice for them to know that there's a backup or there's a safety system in place so that if they do have a problem, they can get in touch with you, or, you're not trying to tell them what to do, but you're just there if they need you. That's a great
Absolutely.
idea.
And I think, your reaction to if something does come up, what I would say is, even if you may have to deal with something that you're thinking, oh, my goodness, this is what I was hoping to stay away from, the fact that they're reaching out is showing you that you have a good relationship and that they would come to you in the future when they're far away from you, maybe across the country, out of, a little bit further away from you than so that the fact that they would reach out is a good thing.
They're 18 years old, you're not, or 17 or 18 or whatever, you're not going to have those apron strings tied around them for much
Even though
longer.
some of us have difficulties with it, absolutely.
That's true.
Being able to let them know that there's a lot of pressures out there, and there's pressures to have, sex too early, there's pressures to, drink or try things that they should not, and that you really want them to really think through the implications of their actions, and know that even sometimes they may make a poor choice, but to ask them the question, and I often say this with teenagers, what kind of things could you have learned from this situation, and what kind of things do you maybe kind of not want to repeat in the future, and what kind of things would you like to do more of should something like this come up again?
Yeah. Well, let's talk briefly about your new book, A Therapist Insider's Guide on Relationships. Who's the target audience, and what's the primary message that you want a reader to take away from your book?
Well, my target audience is women, because women at this point, that we know, we go forward a little bit sooner for help. So I think just to talk about relationships, and because we often go back to the family, maybe to our husbands or children, and open up the conversation about what it is to be healthy in relationships. So I've been a psychotherapist for over 20 years. So what I did was I analyzed my own life I was behind a closed therapy door, and looked at my life from beginning all the way up to adulthood after a 25-year marriage ended. And looked at some of my choices, and based on some of the things that I'd been through as a young child all the way up developmentally into my teen years, and some of the things that I ignored, because I wanted people to really recognize that, sometimes we need to kind of stop and think about some of the choices that we're making if it's kind of out of line with our values.
Yeah, I think if you understand why you did something, and even if you go all the way back to childhood and recognize that, when you understand the whys, it's much easier to address the problem that you may have, or the depression, or whatever you're experiencing now, or your rough relationships, or whatever. If you understand where it's coming from and why you were, as you talk about your environment that you had as a child, and it's fascinating to go back and do that, and it's an important message, I would think.
Right, and I think oftentimes it's not a limitation, but it's really about reflecting, recognizing what worked, why it worked. Maybe sometimes you make choices when you're younger that are a little bit developmentally skewed. And then as you become into your, middle years, you start to address things that no longer fit. And that maybe need to be adjusted a bit. But that takes a deep level of courageousness to be able to really sit and say, what is working for me? What role did I play in maintaining this? And now, as a middle stage adult, what changes do I need to make to ensure that I'm living the kind of life that I want now?
Where should we go to preview and purchase your book?
Well, you can go to my website. My website is roxannederhodge.com, and you can also get the book on Amazon, which has been available since October.
Yeah, and how do you spell that name, just so somebody will know how to find it?
Sure, it's RoxanneDerhodge.
Yeah, just go to RoxanneDerhodge.com, and you can preview the book there or find out more about Roxanne's background. Well, in conclusion, whether or not your teenage son will be attending a prom this spring, perhaps they already have. I know around here some of the proms are already passed. But Roxanne's advice today makes sense as our teens transition to adulthood, and anytime they venture out on their own initiative, communicate with your teen. I trust you. I know you will take personal responsibility, set your own standards, and define for yourself who you are and what matters most to you. Then during prom night this spring, or at that fraternity or sorority party in college next fall, before you take that drink or go all the way without protection, you'll ask yourself if that action is consistent with your internal standards and goals in life. And given the potential negative consequences, is this really worth the risk to myself or to another? And over the past 17 to 18 years, I'm sure you've done your best to demonstrate love and guide your offspring through childhood and adolescence. And it's time to turn the primary responsibility over to them. And you are now their loving coach and senior advisor. And the prom is one of your teen's first big games, as I like to call it, as a near adult. And your message to your teenage son or daughter, have fun on your own terms, and by remaining safe and firmly in control, you'll have the time of your life thus far and will build positive memories to last a lifetime, and you'll be practicing for the future when you're out on your own. And thank you, Roxanne Derhodge, for your sage advice, and best of success on the sale of your book, A Therapist Insider's Guide.